everybody. How is it going? I'm just waiting for Andre to show up. He just sent me an email and said, how do I get on the channel? I think he has more than one email, so I may have sent it to the wrong email. So I hope you guys are doing well. Hello, everybody. I thought while we're waiting, maybe we can do look at some of the swing states again with the dowsing rods to see where we are. And if you have any you want me to look at real quick, I can do that. I put in the main ones. And I wanted to look at Virginia since they just passed that weird thing, or the stupid Supreme Court. So stupid Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just said that they, are going to be, that it's okay for them to throw out votes, which is great. So I just sent you a link. I just sent it back to your, poor Andre's like, how do I get here? Just hit the link. It's just for, and I just sent it back to your, it's a StreamYard link. So just hit the StreamYard link and it should take you right here. So, and I just sent it back. I just replied back to your email before I went on. So, okay. He's doing it. He's doing it. So, okay. So yes is this. They're wild. So yes is that. No is, look at how fast they move. No is that. No is that. And soft yes is woo. And soft no is woo. Where's soft no? Soft no is that way. Okay. So Michigan. Oh, okay. Yes, Michigan. Pennsylvania. Yes, Pennsylvania. A big yes. So these are all positive yeses. Hey, Andre.
Hi there.
We're just killing time till you got here. So
what are you doing? Dowsing? Is that a?
I was doing the dowsing rods. My dowsing rods, they're the craziest dowsing rods. They're so funny. They kind of have a sense of humor. We're just going quickly through the swing states. So I'm just going to go through just a couple more and then we'll start chatting.
All right.
But welcome. Okay, Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a soft yes, you guys. Georgia's a soft yes, which means could change, right? But we're in a good direction, right? Virginia. Ooh. Doesn't matter what Supreme Court did, she's got Virginia. And North Carolina, let's look at North Carolina. That's a soft yes. So the only soft yeses we got were, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina, but the other ones are yes, definitely yes, okay? So we're doing good. So how are you, Andre?
I'm good. Yeah, how about you?
I'm good. Thanks for doing this so close to the election.
It's a pleasure. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Well, good. Now, I do have some like specific questions about some of the stuff I've seen on your channel, and I wanted you to kind of go over with us. But I want to get your feelings, your take on, and maybe even what was happening with the planets the night that Trump did his big, gross rally, and the night and last night with Kamala. So I guess it would have been Saturday night, the Madison Square Gardens debacle. And then the Kamala one last night. Was there anything going on planetarily those nights that would have helped or hurt what was going on? And what were your personal feelings about both?
Yeah, I did post a video yesterday about Kamala's, what happened with hers. There, I looked at the actual chart, and
Okay.
it's really good.
Yeah.
For her, and that's pretty much what people have said, and the attendance, the delivery, the whole thing.
Right.
And in his case, I didn't actually look at the precise time, although that's, now that you mention it, I'll do that as well. But I was aware of it as the swath of time that he's in, where what I had said quite a while back was that the way the Jupiter cycle is, which some astrologers will say, oh, that's really helpful to him. And I kept saying, no, because it's partly helpful, but it's also partly a huge problem because of the way it's configured with his moon. It's opposing his moon. So then what happens is that it really enhances his overconfidence and his way of thinking that something is in the bag and it's,
Oh,
winning. And then also a kind of careless approach, because what happened there that is most striking is that his campaign completely, flubbed the planning. They didn't vet it properly. They let something out they shouldn't have let out. And now they're having to clean up, and it could very well have terrible consequences because, there are pundits that say this is the actual October surprise is Trump doing something to himself, through his own mistake. So yeah, both of those make a lot of sense, but I think they're helpful to Kamala, both because she's doing better with what she's doing herself, and also because Trump is helping her, with his mistakes.
yeah, because I was really I don't know what he's doing. Like I don't I don't know what the unless they're just like, because I know that they have a lot of scheming going on behind. I can always feel that like scheming underneath. But he's not like, not only is he not reaching out to any other groups, like anybody else besides his just core base, but he's also shrinking his base because a lot of people decided I'm out after January 6th. There are people that voted for him twice and are not going to vote for him again because they're done. So, and yet he's this rally, because I really thought, well, maybe the rally might be more mild because he might want to, grow that base. And maybe that's why they're doing it in New York. And I really was so surprised that it was so MAGA-ish. And when I looked into it kind of psychically, why this was, it was like they're in their echo chamber. They're in their silo. And it's almost like they don't want to expose those people to anything else. They don't want to chance losing that, like cracking the base, basically. So they keep just like kind of like making the shell of the silo, or the shell of the echo chamber, harder and harder. It's like high on your own supply. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like they just, think they start to believe that this is just the way most people think. We're the most people, but a lot of it is just trying to insulate the people they already have, like a cult leader, and not let them out, expose them to anything else except what they want them to hear. What do you think was going on, or what are your feelings about it? It's a weird approach.
Well, no, I think you've summarized it really well. There are echoes of this. This has been a Republican Party problem going back to the Obama era, because I don't know if you remember that when Romney was battling Obama, that whole crew, his campaign, and including Fox News, they were convinced they were going to win. They had it in the bag, and they were clearly in their bubble. In fact, there was that debate, I don't know if people remember, where Romney all of a sudden attacked Obama on a point that Obama knew was false. So he let him speak. And then the moderator said, no, yeah, Obama's telling the truth. So Romney looked really stupid. And then they were mad at the moderator, right? But the reason was that Romney only checked, the Republican bubble. So he wasn't aware of the fact that the real news, the overall news would have told him, don't say that because it's a mistake. And we're reliving it on an even expanded level because the MAGA group is even more this way. And even though it's true that Democrats are to some extent in their own bubble, not even close to the level these guys practice. And then there's the approach, because it seems like he's gambling on, like, it's men against women. Well, that doesn't look to me like a good plan. That looks to me like a really bad plan.
Yeah.
Because for you to think, well, I'm just going to agitate, and I'm going to get lots of men, including men that normally don't vote. Apparently, this is the strategy. Like, they're low propensity voters. We're going to get them out. Well, part of the problem with that is that this was, by the way, 2020. I think what drove Trump nuts is that he thought, how can I have gotten 60 million votes in 2016 when I battled Hillary, and now I get 75 million, but the other guy has 83? Well, the reason is because when you agitate like that, you agitate a lot of people that will help you, and you'll agitate a lot of people that hate that, and they come out always 5% more. That's the curse of the Republican Party. They're always 5% behind, right? So the last thing you want to do in this environment is agitate against women, because they're very motivated, and you're never going to make up the numbers. And even if you bring out more of these disaffected people that believe your message, it doesn't work out well. And by the way, I heard Trey Crowder, I don't know, he's a really funny guy from the South. He's the
yes.
Hilarious when he said, he goes, do you realize how bad something has to be for the Trump campaign to back down, because they're trying now to clean up their Puerto Rico thing? He said it had to be really bad, right?
Right.
Yes, it was awful. That person that he brought on stage, now his name eludes me, an artist from Puerto Rico who was
right
up there, Nicky Jam, I think his name is, something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm disavowing Trump. He's calling him an SOB for the way, the way they spoke about Puerto Rico. So, all of this, by the way, really reflects the level of poor discipline that Trump has. He's just such a putz when it comes to, administering a campaign and being sensible and just basic organizing. Read the prompters. Like, apparently they read through and they didn't catch the joke, because they caught another joke that was really offensive toward Kamala, and they pulled that out. But this, this slipped through. So, in other words, you're both a racist and a misogynist, and you're incompetent. You got so that's the bottom line.
Triple threat.
The triple is the trifecta. So yeah, exactly.
Well, and I totally agree with all that. And it is the lack of, and you have that contrast too of, she is so organized and so disciplined, and she's got that prosecutor kind of instinct, and he is just, it just does seem like he's unraveling and falling apart. And I do remember you talking about what was going to happen in the planets for him during this time was going to kind of, it would lend itself to that, because and if he plays into that, it's going to be even more, that's how it's going to unfold for him, is it's going to be kind of an unraveling.
Yeah. The thing with Trump is he's very limited in the end. He's like a one-trick pony. He's got only one or two approaches. He keeps repeating them. And, that's the definition of insanity. When something isn't working, don't keep repeating it. Vary the approach. But he really doesn't know how. He'll do a sort of a half-hearted thing. Oh, I'm here to protect women, after he's put out, 50 messages saying the opposite. So, of course, women don't believe him. Of course, they're not going to believe that. When you come in and say, I'm going to protect you after all the things you've said. So, yeah, it's, and this again goes back to the misuse of big astrological archetypes. Like with Saturn, you have to be disciplined and stay in your lane and know your boundaries. And with Jupiter, it's the idea of enthusiasm. Now, notice how Kamala is very good at doing Jupiter and projecting hope and optimism. Mm-hmm. And he's saying, no, America is a garbage can. Well, it's not really a great message. It gets a number of people going, but overall, it's not going to work well. And the other thing too, by the way, when people say, this guy is so lucky, he gets away with everything. Well, if you were really lucky, think about people like Hitler, and he's very much like Hitler, the way he behaves. He wants to be an authoritarian, dictator. Hitler rose to power in large measure because Germany was really hurting. So those conditions help you. Trump, first of all, he had to deal with COVID. That isn't lucky because for someone as incompetent as he is,
Right.
COVID is the worst thing that could happen to you. And then
Absolutely.
now the economy is booming, inflation is way down, consumer sentiment is up, the stock market is booming. According to him, the stock market is super high because it's expecting him to come in to be president.
Of course it is.
Like,
That's
I
so
mean,
dumb.
honestly, please, I think that he, like Nancy Pelosi once said, either this guy is stupid or he thinks the rest of us are stupid. And maybe
Yeah.
a lot more Americans are way more on the ball than you think, and they see through that, So
I think that's true. And I think it's taken, I think it's taken time because I think for a long time people thought, well, who would lie about that? Or why would he lie about that? Or what, giving him the benefit of the doubt because that they're normal people that wouldn't lie about such a thing as COVID. They wouldn't lie about you know what I mean? So it was kind of like they were all along kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. And now I think they've gotten to know him. And like they said, the more people get to know him, the less they like him. So I think they've just gotten to know him and know how he is and who he is. For a long time, he could kind of bamboozle people, but slowly but surely, people realize that, wait a minute, and I think it's just because they're not that way. So it's not that they're stupid. They wouldn't do that, and they can't imagine someone doing that, So, and a few people have mentioned that and my Trump PTSD is at its limit. I truly believe Harris will get 100 million votes. And I think that's true. Don't you think the fatigue of him? I think so many people are just tired of him and his antics and his lies and his just never going away. Usually presidents will get in and they'll go away. He has not gone away since he came down the escalator. He's just in our face. And don't you think that's going to have an effect?
Oh, no, certainly. I mean, the only counterpoint, or call it a drawback, is that separately in big cycles, we are in the echoes of the Civil War, a couple of planets, three really. I mean, there's an alignment that is very similar to the 1860s. And so, I hope she gets 100 million votes. I hope it's the biggest landslide ever, but I'm also very prepared for a fairly tight result because the country is in this incredibly divided place. And yes, it's very similar to what was happening then. There's a racial overtones are in play, but a victory is a victory. And and that, by the way, is what happened then too. When people say, well, if it's a civil war, that's bad. Well, yeah, but who won that battle? That's the way to look at it rather than think it's all falling apart,
And so I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of my questions was about the planetary where the planets are now versus in certain points in history. And so I guess the Civil War, is one of them. Are there any other, points in history you can look back at that the planets are in the same positions as they were then?
Definitely. The clearest reflection is the American Civil War, because Neptune and Uranus both are in that same place.
Mm-hmm.
The Second World War, it's different because the Second World War, Neptune is in the same place as the birth of the country. So then the country comes together to fight the Nazis, even though for a while it was looking dicey and there were Nazis walking the streets and holding rallies in New York and things like that. But overall, it's a unity principle, just like when the country's formed. Now we're in the Neptune on the other side, so you get division because you get opposing ideologies, at the moment. So that's the primary level. But then you have to add to that, because that's the US, most specifically. But what was not true back in the Civil War was Pluto wasn't doing much. Now it's on its return. So that's another one you have to throw in there that's happening as we speak. So that planet adds extra attention. But the bottom line is that the big planets, the big cycles like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and in the near term, and Saturn too. Saturn, so like practically all of them really. Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. You're talking about most of the visible and then outer planets. They're all changing now. As we go into next year, the year after, the energy is changing. So a lot of the energies we've seen going back a long time, like Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, and it's about to leave, go into Aquarius. And Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. It's about to exit in 2025 and then fully in 2026. And this changes the way society works. Like, for example, my anticipation is that Neptune has been great for expanding a lot of information on camera. I mean, look what's happened to YouTube in the last, since 2011. It's
Right.
That's
Yeah.
on the upside. The downside of Neptune is all the disinformation, all the conspiracies, all the BS that is out there. And it's almost like people are hypnotized, for a period of time. Then as the planet leaves, it's as though society starts to frown upon it. Like, for example, my hope is that society starts to say, come on, it's time to tell the truth. I mean, this nonsense, of you can just say anything and you can lie. We don't like that. And so then slowly, people start to do it in a different way. And then you look at Pluto in Capricorn since 2008. That's how you breed fascism, because Capricorn is a government sign. Cancer is the other sign on the other, the opposite sign. That's what was happening in the 1930s. It breeds that kind of approach. Pluto getting out and going into Aquarius. Aquarius is a people sign. It's a democratic sign. It's not friendly to fascists. So you see where it's going. But of course, people get impatient, and none of this helps you to stay calm in the next week. If you say to me, "Well, what do I do about the fact that I'm really nervous about the election?" I don't know what to tell you. Calm yourself down, because even then, we'll probably have to. There'll be a time, including that. I don't know what you're seeing, but I think this isn't going to clear up at all until at least December, at least. In terms of the election result, and it'd be great if you could say November 5th. Problem solved.
Right.
I doubt it, right? Because
I think yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, I think you're right. And I feel like that we may know like who the winner is pretty quickly, but I think you're right. I think the fight will go on like they did. Like they kind of went through this course. So there was things were in question, and then we had to wait for this result, and kind of, so it won't be set in stone basically until probably December. But I think we're going to know who won. It's just that
they're
going to fight it, right? They're going to fight it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I anticipate that too. And but you remember 2020, how, well, it went all the way to January 6th, but it was what he always does. He uses the legal system as a cudgel, goes in there and delays. And another one of his strategies is to create chaos as much as possible to instill doubt. That's apparently this thing that's, in the background. I heard this story about how he's in cahoots with Mike Johnson to use the 12th Amendment to throw it to the House. Well, to throw it to the House, you'd have to create major chaos in the electoral result, and also have courts cooperate with you, which they haven't been, because these guys, Trump is funny. I mean, he'll go he went on Joe Rogan, and he says to Joe Rogan, well, the election was stolen. Well, where's the evidence? Joe Rogan asked him, do you have anything? No. I'll show you next time. He always does that. I'll show you next time, right? There were votes in the river. What river? Which votes? Never any evidence, right? So It's amazing the ability the man has to hypnotize this many people, by tapping into their resentments. He's able to say something that is patently false, but he keeps it going. And he also knows enough about the legal system that you can delay and you can file lawsuits and so on. So that's what I expect to see, on election night, including this thing too that they're doing, where apparently, like in 2020, declare victory right away.
Right.
And this is also, if you think about it, part of their strategy. I started to wonder a few weeks ago, why did all of a sudden, for no reason, there was no reason why Kamala had been shown to be a little ahead and suddenly she was a little behind. And the explanation I saw in Midas Touch by people who really analyze this is they were flooding the zone with lots of polls to
Yeah.
increase the averages. But when you think about that, on the one hand, that's good because it helps your people believe they're going to win. But the other thing they're doing is they want to program people to then complain when they lose because they'll say, well, the polls were saying we were going to win. How could we have lost?
Exactly.
But all of this, is very ham-handed. Instead of focusing on actually winning by presenting a good plan, you're using trickery. This is Trump, by the way. He's a total loser. He's never achieved anything in his life, right? Screws up everything he touches while telling you that he's a great, everything. I'm a great businessman. I'm a great president. No, you're not. You're totally awful. Your methods are awful. Your discipline is awful. And your results are awful. Plain and simple, right? So I feel really sorry for the people that follow.
I think you're absolutely right. And that idea, he really is that, you like old Westerns, and in Little House on the Prairie, there's an episode where like a remedy salesman comes through, and he has that same ability to, like you said, kind of mesmerize and tell you things could not possibly be true. But because he's just absolutely swearing to it and positively swearing it, you start pulling out your $20 and handing him, for some kind of remedy that can't possibly do what he says, but you want to believe it. And I think that's what he's figured out, that if people want to believe something bad enough and you're giving them a reason or a way to believe that, they'll come along with you, right?
Yes, 100%. And it's in his chart. You see in his chart the ability to do that, but it goes hand in hand with he himself being delusional. He engages in a lot of really stupid delusional thinking. And I think that some part of him believes there was fraud, even though, by the way, there were lots and lots of people around him, which, by the way, Jack Smith is going to use this in court. He's going to say he was telling people I lost. Yes. And then he perpetrated this thing on the American people. That's clear. It's a clear dereliction of duty. So, but nevertheless, many times you wonder, well, okay, where's the line here between when he's calling you and the crazy stuff that he believes? And I think a lot of it he does believe, like that windmills cause cancer, or that, some of those things that he says that are really loopy, Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Some of the stuff. Yeah. I'm just like, where is this coming from? What is he talking about? Or where did this start? Because I always think, of course, he's gotten it wrong somehow, but what is he trying to say? So I wanted to ask you about Saturn. And you talked about Saturn in, there was a video you did, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was talking about Trump's chart. And what happens with Saturn within Trump's chart. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that video, I wasn't expecting. I did quite a few videos with the planets, and for some reason that video really took off, and everybody's watching that video.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
But, Saturn is super important, and the main point is Trump has a very weak Saturn in his chart, and in fact, traditional astrologers, like Hellenistic astrologers, the way astrologers read a chart, one of the things they say is, look how Saturn is in Cancer, which is a sign it doesn't like to be in, because Saturn likes to be in the opposite sign, in Capricorn. So it's weaker. And then it's in the 12th sign, which if you are normal, decent, which is not, then you would be interested in social justice, helping people, or, for instance, charitable work. Well, his notion of charitable work is to start a charity and then rip people off.
Right.
It's hilarious, right? So he totally misuses Saturn. Saturn is what in you focuses and works with reasonable boundaries. He's constantly breaking through boundaries. He has no sense of limits. So then that means that Saturn then, when it's in cycles, will really punish you. It punishes you for the lack of discipline, that you're showing. Now, in contrast, Kamala has an excellent Saturn, and she shows it to you. She's a person, that works hard, but is acutely aware of how far to go. Don't go too far. She's organized. She's disciplined. Right. He's the opposite because of his weak Saturn. And so this is where I was saying today in the video, you play like that, you may succeed in the near term, but you're going to pay the price sooner or later. And when you do, it's going to look really, really bad. It's going to leave you empty, and it'll leave you, destroyed. Basically, it's just that people again will say, "Well, look how he's Teflon; he always gets away with it." Lots of things in life work until they don't work anymore. You'll see. It's like that.
Exactly. And so much of his is it's projection, it's bravado, it's fakery, smoke and mirrors, because we can all see with the people that have eyes to see can see he's a loser. He's lost the Republican everything. They've lost their party basically, and half of them are voting for Kamala this time around. I mean, you've got Liz Cheney out there, Dick Cheney, for goodness sake. And then, so you've got that aspect of it. And then he's got all of these, the money he owes and the charges against him. And he's been convicted of stuff. He's a felon now. I mean, the guy is a loser, but he just tells you he's a winner. We're winning. Yeah. We're winning. Look how we're winning. Look, everyone, how we're winning. And like I said, that elixir, that salesman thing of like, we want to believe so badly we're winning because we don't want to lose. We don't want to be losers, but we'll just look at me and listen to me then, because I'll tell you we're winning. And I think that's where the culty kind of stuff comes in, right? That right. Wanting to believe.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the other comment to make is, because you asked about Saturn, is there's the Saturn of the person and there's the Saturn of society, the American chart Saturn. The problem he has is that the American Saturn is right on his Jupiter. He has Jupiter in Libra at 17 degrees. The American Saturn is, I think, 14 degrees. There's a conjunction. This means that the American Saturn is the social order in America. That's going to stop him. It's going to say, you can't do this. You can't expand in these crazy directions. You're going to cause harm to people. He has this attitude. Trump has this attitude that traffic lights don't apply to me. No, they apply to everybody. That's how we make sure that cars don't crash into each other. You can't just decide.
Right.
So sooner or later, things get difficult. And the Saturn placement right now in his chart is not good at all. I've seen astrologers claiming that it's better than in 2020. It's worse. It's worse because it's in a really difficult part of the chart, which mirrors, by the way, reflects all the judgments that have gone against them, like especially the financial judgments. It's a financial house, but it's also the house of death. Don't fool around with that house. It's dangerous, When you well, by the way, he already came close once, to that. I mean, it was a close call, and the second one apparently wasn't quite as bad, but still, there was a guy with an AR-15 in the bushes. So that's the kind of threat with a planet like that. But bottom line, where it is, not helpful to him at all, right? And both in the way he's behaving, the outcome, etc. So yeah.
And can you explain? This is going to a different thing, but it was just very interesting to me what the black moon is and what its impact on Trump is.
The black moon, the black moon. Okay, so the black moon is like your shadow. The shadow energy in your psyche. Everybody has a place that they're either really ashamed of it or they think maybe I should be ashamed of it. In fact, the secret is to get beyond being ashamed. Then you can feel at ease and deploy it as something more positive. In his case, the black moon energy is in the 5th sign, which I think relates to the things he's done to women, because the 5th sign is the place of love affairs. The 5th is that's what that is, right? So you put it there, that's what it's like. Now, he's a shameless person pretty much, so he probably doesn't have a problem in terms of it bothering him in any way. But then there's the question of the black moon. It's moving all the time. It's got a 9-year span that you see it moving around and around, and it's not in a good place in the transits right now for him, right? Which that just basically means it's unfavorable in terms of winning an election, for example. And it's one of the points that on election night is getting triggered because a planet lands right on the black moon. If a planet is on the black moon, you're not going to see light. You're going to see darkness, right? You're going to go, this didn't turn out. Now, it's not the only thing, but it's, a kind of a really up close thing that you see that is very unhelpful to him. And I don't know if that answers your question, but
No,
it's
that is, yeah, because I think like we said, he's all projection, right? He can't admit anything. He can't even say sorry. He can't do any of that. So when things like that creep up, I think it can't do anything but make him either feel weaker or sense that weakness in himself, to
yeah,
some
and
degree.
and like you said though, he'll project the black moon. So black
Mm.
moon being a potentially dark and seedy, complicated energy, what he does is he amps up the rhetoric and says more and more outrageous, racist, misogynist, violent things. That's classic black moon when it's on the bottom end. Like this is the key with astrology is to understand that planets are like a range. People are free, sort of. I mean, not entirely free, I suppose, because it gets really complicated. But it's really good to understand it that way. Around you're relatively free to express the high end or the low end. So if you express the low end, like think of the 12th sign where he's got a cluster of planets. That's the most spiritual house, high end, prisons on the low end. Which what do you want to do? I mean, like saying to you, do you want to experience the high end or do you want to get in trouble? Criminals, prisons, liars, thieves, all the horrible stuff is there, but also the really exalted energy is there as well. There's no way to know, what a person will do. You have to assess each chart independently. It's just that with him, probably his genetics, right? His father was a KKK supporter. He maybe didn't have good mother energy. Who knows? There's something going on there because we know that one of I think his brother or someone was very different. I think that's the story.
Yeah,
So,
his older brother. Yeah.
yeah. So sometimes what happens, I think, to a person is they're hatched. They come out of the egg, so to speak, and it's just the way they are. They reflect the KKK vibes. And then there was someone there that didn't. And so then you're building this thing and you're building it. I mean, how do you explain that you would be drawn to someone like Roy Cohn? Because Roy Cohn, I mean,
Right.
I don't know if you've seen that movie about Roy Cohn. I mean, pretty scary character.
Yeah, he's just those people that, and again, Trump and the people he surrounds himself with, these people that are just void of they're just amoral. They just they don't care. They don't feel, it doesn't mean anything to them. It is. And whenever I see, because they have those kinds of characters in like Martin Scorsese movies or like gangster movies. And I always tell Adam whenever we watch those, I'm like, I don't want to believe there are people like that on this earth because it's just so scary to me. But I think we've seen that, and part of this kind of, what my guys have called the unearthing, like all the uglies coming out. It's all going to come out and we're going to have to look at it and face it and fix it and heal from it as well. It's a good thing. It's not like you said that, like the shadow moon, it's not necessarily a bad thing for everything to come out, because if you don't face it, you can't fix it. And I think in a lot of ways we were, naive that someone like P. Diddy could be running us, a sex ring, and someone like, all of these weird things that have come out, the Weinstein stuff, all of the Me Too stuff, everything is just culminating in this, oh my, like we just didn't know. But now we know, what are we going to do? I thought one story that kind of went under the radar, I'm just going to quickly plug in my computer so I don't disappear. I thought one story that went under the radar, and it reminded me of something, which I think, again, helped Kamala in a big way, whether they realized it or not. I did a video a long time ago where something had happened, and I think it was something after George Floyd, but one of the acts they were going to pass didn't pass. And I was apologizing, and I was just kind of saying, I'm so sorry to like the African-American community, just like just out loud. I was upset. It was a very emotional time. It was during COVID. So it was just an emotional time. And I was saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And on my Ring camera, it caught just tons of orbs just flowing up as I was doing this. And what I realized, and what led to this kind of prayer that we did all together as a community, was that when you apologize, it moves energy. It does something. And that's why it is so important, especially when you have these bigger things that nations have done to people, like slavery and things, that it's so important that to apologize, it moves the energy, it changes the energy. And that's why it's so important. It's not just a thing that, oh, you should do just to, because it was not good enough. It actually does something. And it really was like a light bulb moment. But recently, Biden apologized to the Native American community, indigenous community, saying they were so sorry about what happened when all of the white people kidnapped them and tried to educate them in the whatever the way they wanted to, and what they thought was better or whatever. But that apology, when I saw that, I thought, he's moving the energy. He's moving some of that locked energy we've been in with, and what's causing so much of the strife, what's causing so energetically, I would say, and underneath everything, it's causing so much of this just tension and strife. And when he did that, whether he knew it or not, he was moving that energy. And that was, it was helping Kamala. It was going to help her, because it helps to move that stuff so that we can start to release it and kind of start to work through it. But what do you think about that? Did you see that, first of all, that he did that? And do you think that kind of stuff does matter? And is there a planet, the way the planets work, that tend to help truths to come out, or help hearts to soften? Or is there any planet that does that when it comes in? Aquarius, I know, is quite a lovey-dovey kind of thing, but is there something that's happening or going to happen that maybe brings in that kind of more, almost like a more, I would say, like the divine feminine energy, or something like that, or the compassion and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, there is, except that I don't know that I would peg it on one specific thing that Biden or anyone would do. That's part of the big cycles that are switching.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, some people align themselves with that switch, with that wind or that drift, and some people resist it. And so then Biden is better aligned by doing that for what is coming. But also, you could also say that separately, you could say a message like that resonates with people that are like-minded, and maybe some of the MAGA people that are kind of on the fence, because it's more human, it's more normal. If you think of the MAGA response, you can't apologize, because that would be admitting weakness, when in fact it's actually a strength. It's a strength to be able to say, no, I didn't do this correctly. Better luck next time. You actually get more respect from people when you do that, even if it bothers you. If you think, well, I didn't want to do it this way. Right? So, but for Trump, again, he's very limited that way. He's got this one system, and, it's almost in a way full of ironies, because he's like the kid in school who's trying to pass the test, and he can never get beyond 45%, like 45%, 46%, you fail again, because he can never get over 50, right? So he gets close, but he doesn't quite make the grade. And unfortunately, right now, there are a lot of people that are resonating to this message, because there's like a gender war, there's a culture war, and people are in opposite camps. But yeah, he's not reading the landscape properly in terms of what's coming, right? And so yeah, anyway, bottom line to say, I totally agree with you, though, that was the correct approach, what Biden did.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to ask about, and we have, everybody's making great comments, and thank you everybody for being here. It's so fun to see you guys live and reacting to things live. And Ness is like, there are monsters among us, and there are enablers of monsters, right? That's what they create, the monsters, or they keep the monsters in place, right? And I think a lot of this is, right, it's kind of like all of these politicians have become beholden to these, the not only the monster they created, but the monster community that they have created that's so violent. And so, it scares them. So if they are really in between a rock and a hard place, especially when you're spineless and you won't do anything, then you're really in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. It's this almost like this sense that the way to win and to be successful is to, the way Kamala puts it, she says it brilliantly, where she says the whole idea is you beat people down. You literally, like what they were doing in 1860s, you want to enslave people. You want to make them, you want to subjugate them, you want to dominate them, you want to punish them.
Right.
Well, that's most people don't like that, right? And luckily, I continue to believe, understand, perceive that there are more normal people in this country still, to Trump's great chagrin, because he's trying to turn the country, he's trying to degenerate the country. The man is a degenerate, trying to degenerate everybody. And I don't think it's working. I really don't think it's working. In fact, you can tell in one way, you remember what we always used to think of Dick Cheney. It's remarkable that Dick Cheney now is on the good side.
I know what's going on. Yeah. And but it also shows the times we're in, that we're in these extreme times that call for extreme action. And I think some people are answering the call and some people are not. And that perfectly segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which I'm sure people want to know about, which is all these lame-o CEOs. What have you done? I'm going to list just a few to see if you've done charts on these people. If you haven't, it's okay. But what are your kind of feelings on what is with them? I mean, I'm thinking of like Elon Musk, Bezos. What is going on with these people that are just, and the Jamie Dimon thing, do people that are just kind of selling out, that are just, they are going to vote. We all know they're going to vote for Kamala, maybe not Elon Musk, but we know that the other CEOs that will not speak up are going to vote for her, but they're hedging their bets towards Trump. Have you done any of the, like Elon Musk or, Bezos or any of those kind of CEO Herculeses? Have you done any charts for them?
The main, the charts that, first of all, because they're actual charts, there are times. So I have Elon Musk and I have Bill Gates, and then Bezos, I don't believe there's a time, just a day, birthday. And Diamond, not sure about him either. It's another just birthday.
Right.
But with what I have, in fact, Bill Gates, and people sometimes attack him because, in a lot of people's minds, if they're progressive, all billionaires are bad. But I think a better answer is, the world is relative. That's what Einstein was telling us, besides telling you that you could make nuclear weapons or whatever, relativity, everybody thinks this is this way or that way. Everything is relative to something. So if you compare Bill Gates, he's putting money into the Harris campaign. He's trying to solve world health problems. He's constantly looking at, what can I do? How can I put my brain to help people improve their lot in life? Right. And then you have Elon Musk, who's a hypocrite and a liar and potentially on the spectrum insane person. Right. Free speech is whatever he says it is. So he says totally misogynistic and racist things on Twitter, and according to him, that's the public square. So bottom line, though, to all this is that these people, what they're doing is they're trying to position themselves. I think Musk thinks that this is a good plan. What ends up happening is back to Saturn again. People that miscalculate and make moves, wait till the Saturn finds them, in terms of you realizing, okay, now you get the payment for your excess, for the fact that you miscalculated, right? So Musk, he's in the same category as people like Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Vladimir Putin. The planets switching now go into Cardinal. Saturn goes into Aries. then he feels the pressure, right? Because currently he's not. It's smooth going for the time being, right? And the other thing, when you mention some of their behavior, like Diamond and Bezos, to me, it's just what they're doing is they're trying to position themselves in case Trump wins. Because if they start attacking Trump now, then Trump will attack them when he's president. And so, they think, well, what if he wins? So, Bezos, I think the Washington Post lost 250,000 subscribers because of
Yeah.
what he did, right? So,
Yeah.
but he probably figures, you know what? I got billions. I lose 250,000. I'll get them back, or I won't get them back. For him, the paper is just like a trophy that he has. So he could care less. He feels that, no, in the overall scheme, I don't want this guy messing with my business. Yeah, it's cowardly. You always hope, well, why can't people be more, a little more courageous? But that's why he's behaving this way. And but then again, like I said, if you say, okay, what's the astrology? You're misusing the Saturn Jupiter principles. You're doing something that will come back to haunt you in due time. But that takes a while, right? Right now, Musk is all intertwined with the government, with his contracts. That may not last. Because governments eventually figure it out. They realign themselves, and it's a gamble that he's taking. I think it's a dumb gamble.
It is a dumb gamble. Yeah. And I also think that there's this idea that, well, Trump will punish me, but Kamala won't. That, she's not going to punish me if I don't, but Trump will. And so I'll just kind of go with him. But Trump, I loved the part in Kamala's speech where she called him a petty tyrant, and he kind of went back, compared him to George III. I guess it was King George III. That petty tyrant. And I think that that's the thing they're forgetting, is that these types like Putin, like Trump, they are petty. And the slightest thing could make them shut down, in that kind of situation where it's an authoritarian government or a dictatorship. They can just shut your bank account down in a day and say, your kid tweeted something I didn't like, and so I'm taking all your money and you're going to jail for trumped up charges. And they forget that or they don't think it will happen to them, or they're so powerful they don't think it will happen to them. But look how many oligarchs are dead that were around, and their families and their dogs that were around. That were around Putin, that were they were best buds until they weren't.
It's true, but it's their vision, though. That their vision of the world is it should be run by, toxic masculine men like Putin, and surrounded by oligarchs. And, like a really top-down setup. That's their vision of the world. Now, the question is that where the world is going? No, that's not where the world is going. So that's why it's extremely unlikely to work. And you can see this in the astrology. A lot of the astrology is where are the planets going? And what does that do to a person's setup, depending on how they're acting. So if Saturn, because by this logic, someone might be watching this and say, well, hold on a second. I'm the same sign as Putin. You're saying things are going to get really bad for me. No, because you're not doing what Putin is doing. So then for you, it becomes a work period, a period of ambition where you willingly discipline yourself in order to achieve something, right? That's the way it works well, Saturn. The way it doesn't work so well is when you meet your excesses, through the restrictions that it brings as a result. That would be the wrong side of Saturn, right? So, bottom line with this is we have to wait them out, And in a way, Musk is starting to be a lot like Trump in that, he buys a business for 50 billion or whatever it was, and now it's worth 10% or 20%. That's what he's done to Twitter, as a result of his business acumen. Nobody wants to buy Teslas anymore. He's doing major damage. So, these are setbacks at first because he's got so much money. He's not feeling it, but maybe eventually he will. And eventually, you said Kamala is not likely to take revenge, but it's not about that. It's about the government always tries to, maintain the situation working. They may realize this guy's not good to have around with so much power because he's hurting the, the way the country is working. And then the situation can turn against him.
And I wanted to run past you this as we're talking about Elon Musk. Linda brings up the fact that Elon Musk is a citizen, but is also an immigrant. So maybe they'll deport him too.
Well, did you hear that? Did you hear that it came out that he he was here illegally for a period? You know, this is always the hypocrisy of these people.
I know, it's
Like
just
Trump, you know,
so.
calling the military people suckers and losers, and he's getting, you know, deferments with bone spurs, so he won't have to go to war. I mean, total coward. And someone that thinks that way is just reprehensible. It's awful.
It
And,
is.
and
It
another
is.
thing, he was caught on a hot mic. Apparently, this is the latest that I heard. I haven't verified this, but I heard that he was caught on a hot mic saying things like the things will improve, but people will have to be sacrificed. You know, one of those messages that again are going to blow up in his face because he wasn't aware that this is Musk now I'm referring to.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I was going to tell you on the last Saturday, a Thursday Night Live that we did, and I was it's just where I answer people's questions. And somebody asked about Elon Musk and what's his thing. And at the very end of looking at him, I got a quick flash of, the end of, have you ever seen the movie Carrie?
Oh yeah. Wow.
At the,
okay.
At the end of Carrie, where that hand comes out of the dirt, and I got a flash of that. And to me, I interpret it as something is coming back for him. Something he thought was buried, something that he thought was dead and buried is coming back for him. And when I said that at the time, I got chills. So I knew that I was interpreting that correctly, but there is something coming back for him. And then I wanted to add with that I was talking to my daughter, Cassie, who lives in the UK, and she was saying there was a full article in the UK that was all about the fact that Elon Musk kind of jumped in like wholeheartedly with Trump when P. Diddy got arrested, which I thought was very interesting. And I thought, and there's a million pictures of Elon Musk with P. Diddy, Trump with P. Diddy. So I'm like, it just made me think. And I thought that is very, very interesting. And, these rich guys, they've got their hands in every pot. They've got all these things going on that they get involved with and that they do, and they think they can get away with. And so we might be very surprised at some of the ways these people go down, because you can almost feel the falls coming from some of these people that are so self-destructive or seem so self-destructive, like Elon Musk.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's almost like an impulse in society to level the playing field, and the human race, I think, we may not be like bees, like a beehive, but there's a lot of that in the human mentality. So when someone gets too big for their, whatever they are, something cuts them down, particularly when you can say, look what you did. I mean, it's not like people don't disagree with people that work hard and become extremely rich. In fact, I go back to the Bill Gates comment. I'm sure he's not perfect at all, but he's very unlikely to get in that kind of trouble just from the way he is. Whereas, and maybe even Bezos, because Bezos is just good at business and he's not particularly courageous. But when you start playing these games the way Musk does, yes, and by the way, then you have reporters digging around. By the way, this is why these people hate the press.
Yes.
The press in America, the reporting in America is unbelievable. It's so stellar. People should be thankful for the media because they find everything. And this is what, I would say this to Trump. You can't do anything in this country. They're going to find it. You do something, I guarantee you, there will be a whisper somewhere. Someone will, because why? Because there's an interest. If I'm a reporter, that's what you want to do, bring down a big fish. So it's a problem, right? And so if you say that he's probably implicated in some awful things, yeah, just give it time and they'll show it. Yeah, absolutely.
And in this day and age with cell phones and all the tracking and you can't, even if you're a genius, you're gonna leave a trail somewhere. So the last person I want to ask you about, which is people are asking in the chat about if you've done a chart on on Trump's running mate, on Vance.
I have, yeah. Trump's running mate, the thing you see most clearly is why he is so much in the limelight right now. But you also see, because there's a lot of Uranus in his chart, same with Trump, but this also goes to his erratic responses and his sort of, once again, the excess individualism. And the way that planet is placed, it's the idea of being prominent, being famous, but not necessarily successful, just really up there, which is what he is, what he's doing. And you see these echoes too. It's very interesting with his chart. You see all the problems he's having with, that whole thing with the childless cat ladies. There's a lot of energy in the children's house. And that's why he, for whatever reason, he went on that tangent and then it surfaced and then he's trying to defend it. And it's causing him a lot of problems, right? And I think his plan is he wants to be the next MAGA, the inheritor of MAGA. But I think he's going to have a problem with that because MAGA is unlikely to survive in the long term. So then there'll be competitors to his, to his approach or whatever, right? So yeah, I mean, you can see the connections to Trump. They're both Leo rising, same rising sign. I forget now what his actual. I can't remember. I know that there's a lot of agreement. That's why he picked him.
Right.
But I mean, there's agreement, but you probably saw that. He caused them. Vance caused them all kinds of problems because of the things that kept surfacing about him. And in the past,
right.
The cat ladies and so on. I mean, bottom line, it's like you're doubling down on that same masculinity approach, and it's like they're saying to women, well, we don't need your vote. Well, that's not a good plan, in my opinion. I would have said to him, bad plan. By doing this, you're going to come up short.
And that when you talk about him being, just wanting to be famous, wanting to be relevant, basically, it really reminds me of Rudy Giuliani and how he kind of got mixed up in so many, all this stuff. And really, because I think his just thirst to be be relevant again and be famous. And, I think that it just led to all of his issues and problems. And again, that self-destructive streak that he just has that,
I mean, think about it. This whole thing, I mean, sometimes it's funny because Trump seems to, he worships Hitler. He thinks Hitler was something really great. Well, how did that end? That doesn't end well. Okay, so Rudy Giuliani, what do you? I would look at him and say, you're a really, really stupid man. Now you're going to have to give your apartment and all your money to the women that you were defaming.
Yeah, and wouldn't stop defaming. And wouldn't stop defaming. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like they won't stop.
Right. So, I mean, even if they succeed in hiding or temporarily or permanently, you're living life now like an outlaw, running from the law. It's so complicated. Why not just play it straight, right? So a lot of these characters, they just push and push and push. Society is designed to put a check on you because otherwise you destroy everything. What Giuliani was doing was such an awful thing. It is so lowbrow, so corrupt, to put a person's life in danger like that, and even to lie about people. Where did you get the nerve to do that? But hey,
just such bad karma. Yeah, absolutely.
Look at it now. Look where he is now, right?
Yeah,
that's the
And I love
he's another Gemini, in case you were wondering.
Oh, okay.
He's a Gemini. By the way, he's a Gemini. Jupiter is in his sign. Do you see any Jupiter? I don't see any Jupiter. What I see is Saturn.
Oh, okay.
Because Trump has Saturn challenging him from Pisces. Same with Giuliani. They both have Jupiter in their sign, but even though Jupiter is there, it's not enough. It cannot overcome the karma that he's created through his horrible actions. Right.
And you can just see that. You can see that in both of them. Of them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I did love the because when you talked about when he talked about Hitler and refusing to believe that, he kept saying that Hitler did good things. And I love that Jon Stewart said, yes, he did one really good thing. He killed Hitler.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's remarkable to me that you would think, you would actually think, I mean, this is like someone saying to you, you know, I heard my friend says that if you use methamphetamine, you'll feel a lot of energy. Yeah, you will, but then you're going to crash really badly and it will not end well. Don't go there. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. This guy thinks, oh, Hitler, look at the crowds, because he loves crowds, right? Hitler had
Right.
really big crowds. But, you know, this is great until it isn't. I mean, you know, when you end up in a bunker with a going like this to yourself,
Yeah.
I would say that's probably not a good plan. You planned incorrectly. But
And
Trump
he
is like
destroyed
Hitler
his
in
own
that,
country. I mean,
yeah, they're both terrible planners. You know, they're both people that, I mean, Hitler was notoriously, you know, mind-numbingly, he was a total knucklehead. The way his generals were telling him, we can't win it like this. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. He destroyed everything. He just
oh, that
destroyed.
sounds familiar, right? It sounds like a Putin energy coming back as,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And last question, Andre, how about Bannon? Do you have any thoughts or
yeah, I do.
parts or anything about Bannon?
Right. So
Um,
Bannon, okay, first of all, where we have to keep this in mind, Bannon is probably the most intelligent of the MAGA people.
I agree with
He is
you. Yeah.
unbelievably evil, but he's very articulate and he's very sharp at knowing the patterns.
Yeah.
His problem is that he's a Sagittarius, and when you play like that, again, Saturn is, that's why he ended up in prison, by the way. You know,
Right.
the idea of being sequestered is very Saturnian too, where, you know, the walls close in. That's Saturn. So he's still under that energy all through next year and even parts of the year after. And the way he plays, it's not going to work out well. Even though, yes, I'll say, you know, that he impresses me the most as he's genuinely evil and dangerous. You know, he's way more scary than Trump to me.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Yeah, and he has more of a, you know, Trump is not an ideologue. You know, he just kind of goes with the where the wind is blowing. He doesn't care. He doesn't. But Bannon has very firm beliefs and very firm. He knows what he thinks about the world, and he has summed it up in a way that I think that's just the way he sees things, and he bends everything to that. And that, to me, I also agree, is scarier than Trump.
Yeah. You know, these are all often people that they have a trajectory, they seem to be doing well, but then they miscalculate. You know, sooner or later. It's literally like what I said earlier. I mean, you can, you know, if you come up to me and you say, well, I'm really good, I'm amazing at running traffic lights, I would still say to you, you know, you'll probably get caught.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Don't do that. There are better ways, you know, to exercise your powers or whatever your prowess. Don't do it, because these are checks that are good for everyone. They're there,
Yes.
you know, and people like Bannon. Bannon is also, by the way, in this chart, something that he has. These signatures in astrology are really clear. He's got a really overloaded Pluto, just like Trump has that too. People like that are instinctively fascistic. They want to dominate. They are that way. They really believe the world should be run by alpha males. I actually think it's a terrible idea. I'm hoping that women acquire more and more power, which they will, by the way. That's where the cycles are going. Women are rising. These men think they can stop them. No, you can't.
No.
It's changing. You know, by the way, when all is said and done, okay, so history books 50 years from now, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, this Trump guy was a pretty crazy guy back in the whenever. You know what he accomplished? He was critical toward bringing in the first woman president. And by the way, she was a woman of color.
Yes.
That's going to be his achievement. And I cannot think of a bigger insult to the MAGA people.
Yeah,
This guy,
absolutely.
you know, and he made it happen in that debate. That's what he did. That Trump was instrumental, right? We were all thinking, well, Biden may win, probably will win, then maybe Kamala, whatever. No, he got in there and he's all proud of himself. He manifested her, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also think, you know, with how 2016 went and now he's running again, and it's like, of course it has to be a woman that beats him. Of course it does. And like you said, insult to injury and insult to MAGA, it's got to be a woman of color. Of course it does. Of course it does.
Yeah, of course.
And you're right with Bannon. It's with guys like him that are scary like that, and you think, it is always their arrogance and their their belief that they are the only smart voice in the room, they get, that's usually what undoes people like that, is they won't listen to anybody else at all. And so they end up just hearing their own voice and
Yeah. You know, what planet is that? Do you know the planet that does that? That
No.
causes you to be arrogant and believe that yours is the only way? That's Jupiter. That's the counterpoint to Saturn. And Bannon is a Sagittarius, which is Jupiter ruled. You know, Sagittarius tend to be, they're people that if they're good, they're great teachers, they adapt to situations, but it's a fire sign and it can get pretty arrogant. And he really shows that, you know, the big Jupiter head. He's got a huge physical head and a huge ego inside that, noggin of his. So that's,
he does have a huge head, because I was noticing that today at his press conference. I'm like, gosh, it's his head that's huge. It's not really his body that's huge. It's just his head.
And he wraps it all in like multiple layers of shirts. He must be feeling cold all the time.
He must be. He didn't have all his shirts on, so he looked all disproportionate. Oh my gosh, it's so fun to talk to you, Andre. What do you have going on in your channel? What's coming up?
It's continuous now. I'm just trying to put out videos from different angles, because no matter how many times I say this, people have trouble believing it sometimes. And also because astrology is fun that way, when I'll spot something that I'll realize, oh yeah, look, this points in the same direction. Although sometimes there are also counterpoints, like this idea that it's just all roses. No, it's not. There's difficult energy to get through here. I would be completely amazed if on November 5th, Kamala wins and then everything is perfect and rosy. Extremely doubtful. And by the way, including even going into next year and the year after that, just because the planets are where they were during the Civil War, the country is really divided, and things don't happen quickly like that. They take time, and it means that people continue to be nervous or angry or wondering, like, why hasn't this person been imprisoned yet, and things like that. But you have to be patient.
I agree, because we didn't get here overnight, right? And so we're not going to get out of it overnight but you can see the cracks beginning. I mean, if Dick Cheney is voting for a Democrat, something is happening. something has shifted.
100%. I mean, he's probably the greatest example, because I remember when he was the VP, he really used to bother me, and that I used to think, man, you really are corrupt. I mean, George W. Bush, he was a bit dim-witted. He struck me as a pretty much a lightweight on the mental level. But even so, you notice that near the end, he was refusing to pardon someone that Cheney wanted pardoned. And that's Peter Libby character. Right. And George Bush said, I'm not doing that. And he that way, George Bush is like his dad. He's more upright. Yeah, but I remember Cheney,
Peter Libby,
thinking this guy's a total crook. And I remember, by the way, Republicans that I knew, solid Republicans, who were saying to me, yeah, I'm Republican, but that guy's a crook. They just knew, right? Well, here he is. Like, the thing about Cheney is he may be a crook, but he pulls for America. He knows, he's not going to sell it out to Putin. That's the part that I find most horrible about Trump. What a traitor the man is,
Yes.
Just throw it all overboard and make alliances with dictators and horrible people. And
these people all going along with it. They know what they're doing. When they're using Putin's talking points, and they're falling in line, that that's what a traitor is, and they really are traitors to the country. So
and by the way, in a way, if you think about it, the messaging is pretty clear. That happened I don't know if it was at MSG or the rally before that, but Trump went out of his way to say something about, oh, I could have been doing this and that. Here I am, but I could have been enjoying myself with my perfectly white body. He said it, my perfectly white body. He's sending out do you remember that guy, Steve King, years ago? He had said he got thrown out at the time the Republican Party was still sensitive to racist remarks.
Right.
He said, really racist things, and they finally threw him out. He had made a point that he said, Putin is the leader of the free world. These people are on this, white alpha male oligarchs. That's how they want to run the world. Trump is signaling this way. And some of the messages at MSG were exactly that, pointing in that direction. So they're not really hiding it.
No, not at all. But I also think that's helpful, right? Because it has made people drop off, because those people that aren't all in for all that stuff, they're like, "Ugh, I'm out,
Yeah,
I don't want to get on the Hitler train or whatever this is.
yeah, like 100%. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. I mean, that you shudder to think where we're lucky is, imagine that you had someone like Bannon. You have to be even smarter than Bannon, because Bannon, the problem with him is his presentation. He looks like a hobo, so he could never be elected. But imagine, put Steve Bannon's mind inside Gavin Newsom's body, and you have a major problem.
Right, right. Yeah,
Major,
yeah,
major
that's
problem.
right.
Because they would go, wow, this guy looks really presidential and he's saying some really interesting things. And then he would take over the country, and who knows where that would happen, right? Luckily, so far we've avoided it, right? And I think if, as the planets change, it becomes less likely that the country
Right.
goes this way, which would be a good thing,
Which would be, yeah, it would be a great thing.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Andre. And thank you everybody for hanging out and chatting. And yeah, I will be doing Thursday Night Live tomorrow night, and we'll do some more. We'll look at some more states and whatever you guys want to talk about. And we'll all just link arms and get through the next few days together.
That's all that's left to do. Exactly.
That's all that let's do. And visit Andre's channel. His information is in the description below. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Andre. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. All right.